Holy mackerel, y'all. I did not expect that last video of mine to do as well as it did. And, yeah, the feedback I got on that was actually, while very valid, very funny. Um, Going into that video, I was bored studying for finals, and I wanted to keep procrastinating. So I was like, hey, let's record a video. And so with about 90 seconds of thought, I turned on the camera and started talking. And yeah, you could tell. So yes, that was not the most professional video. If you want to see stuff that looks a lot better, I encourage you to keep poking around in my YouTube channel. I'm sure you'll find some stuff that looks a lot better and is a lot more planned and thorough. Okay, so yeah, that video was interesting. And while this is hitting on that a little bit, there's something a little more interesting and important to talk about today. And that is the topic of iPads. Now, iPads are an Apple product that no one really knows where they fit in. Is it a laptop? Is it an iPad? Not even Apple knows. And going off of that topic, well, new ones come out occasionally. And we got some new ones recently. We got the M4 iPad Pros, and the iPad Air got an M2 spec bump. As my previous iPad, this lovely iPad Pro right here from 2018 that I've been using for quite a while, is getting older. My Notes app, GoodNotes, is not working. Notion is being fussy, and as I'm going into the fight portion of my education here, I do need an iPad with a cellular chip for GPS. So this iPad was not long for this world. So after the iPad Airs were announced and the iPad Pros, went ahead and upgraded my iPad. So today we're going to be talking about the new iPad Air that I just picked up all of 3 hours ago. Actually more like 5 hours ago. Point still stands, I just got it, let's talk about it. So right off the bat, this iPad is very much a spec bump. It's about the same size, the same display, same case, give or take the same weight. Of course, mine weighs a little bit more because it's cellular. That does add actually a considerable amount of weight for some reason. But the big upgrade on the iPad Air this time is the chip. Now with the M2 chip, of course previously had the M1, but the M1 even is leaps and bounds above my iPad Pro from back in the day. As this again 2018, so this is running an A series processor back when it was running an iPhone chip. So I got it, and here she is. But yes, so this is my new iPad Air M2, cellular, Wi-Fi, and a terabyte of storage. This little beauty right here runs around for just the iPad and the Apple Pencil Pro. Of course, we can see the lovely Pro moniker here on the Apple Pencil. Where's the pencil? There we go. This full setup here cost around $10.49. But yeah, so let's talk about it. So I don't remember a ton of the specs directly about this iPad right off the top of my head, so I'm going to use my lovely iPad and open up the little spec page on this device through Apple and what they say the device is. Because honestly, I don't remember all the things they tout when comparing this to the previous gen iPad Air. Now, I know they've changed quite a bit of things, quite a few things, quite a bit, when it comes to efficiency and cores. So we're just going to pull up their lovely little compare chart here and just throw in this M2 iPad Air and the previous M1 iPad Air. Okay, and we'll go all the way back to the 4th gen, which is what I've had in the past. So I've had 4 iPad Airs, 3 iPad Airs now, and something that's been really interesting is how they haven't changed. So this design language, I'm going to be using my iPad Pro just as talking about it because they look the exact same. The only thing you'll be able to tell is different is this one has a flash, and this just says iPad. The iPad Air does say iPad Air there, and it doesn't have a flash module. But just for the sake of you guys seeing it, this is what you're going to be looking at, so I can keep using my iPad Air. So, of course, the saturation level of colors with Apple has slowly been slipping down the drain rather rapidly, and it continues here with the iPad Air. They are even less saturated than previously, but you're not really here to learn about specs. The build quality is the same, it's an iPad. Technically, the display is 0.1 inches bigger, so they're now rounding it up to an 11-inch display compared to the 10.9 previously. Of course, it always has the liquid retina, and while it does sound like I'm just reading off specs, it is actually interesting to see how much it's changed. So the M2 obviously is a step up over the M1 with 2 more GPU cores over the M1 chip. Now, if we also compare that to the 4th gen that came out even further back, it has 6 more GPU cores and 2 more CPU cores. Now, just for kicks, let's go ahead and compare that to my iPad Pro 11 1st gen, which had the A12X processor with an 8-core CPU similar to both the 5th and 6th gen iPad Air, but having a 7-core GPU rather than 8 or a 10. And of course, at an 8-core neural engine, compare that to the 16 on the new ones. So we're going to go ahead and go back here and compare the 4th, 5th, and 6th gen iPad Airs. So they all have the same camera on the back, none of them have a flash, but what we're getting is a lot of the upgrades through Apple's photo algorithm. And the front camera has changed a little bit. On the 4th gen it was a 7 megapixel, but then now it's 12, which it's been 12 since the 5th gen with the M1. But what's interesting now is on the iPads, it is now up here on the landscape side. Of course on this one here it isn't, because this is an iPad Pro, but it is there. Of course we have USB-C with a little higher throughput for data transfer and Touch ID, which does seem to be extremely fast compared to when I had my 4th gen iPad Air. The speakers are very loud. They're nothing even close to what this is, but they are very loud and they don't seem very tinny. They do seem to be using a new driver technology, so it does seem very very full and impressive. Of course, you have all your upgrades in Wi-Fi 6E. It does seem to be pretty blazing fast. Of course, it has 5G, which I have because I'm using a data plan. Now here's what's really stinking dumb. Really stinking dumb. So the iPad Air 4th gen and 5th gen both supported the Apple Pencil 2, which I actually have over there, and the USB-C Apple Pencil. The new iPad Air and Pro technically only support the Apple Pencil USB-C and the Apple Pencil Pro. So really they're opening a new doorway for Apple Pencils, so nothing crazy there, but it's just very annoying when we look at how you have to buy fully new Apple Pencil for these devices. It would make more sense if we were doing something where the previous iPad Apple Pencils would work, but just not having obviously the same feature set, and making that feature set the selling point to try to upsell people on an Apple Pencil. Don't make people completely have to buy a new $130 Apple Pencil, but you know, they didn't ask me. So continuing on, of course I'm using my Magic Keyboard from this iPad, works flawlessly. This keyboard will not work on the iPad Pro due to a redesign and a thinner device, and technically it's a different aspect ratio by a little bit, etc, etc, etc. No one really cares. Going on to storage, they also really upgraded this. The previous were only 64 and 256, whereas 64 was rarely enough. I mean, if you download Genshin Impact, that's 30 gigs right there, so half your storage is gone, but 256 is either too much or still not enough. And having that 256 mark would either force people to upgrade to the iPad Pro, as Apple does with their pricing tiers, or you would just have to use and depend heavily on cloud storage. Of course, now with the iPad Air 5, or 6, we see them starting at 128 gigs of storage rather than the 64 or 256. Of course, now you can get it up to a terabyte, which is what I expect on mine. Size-wise, these are the exact same size devices. Weight is a little bit different. Actually, I take that back. The 5th and 6th gen iPad Airs are the exact same weight no matter what you get. The iPad Air 4th was 0.02 pounds lighter. And for all of our other friends, that'd be 3 grams difference, 4 on the new 6th gen iPad Air. Of course, the display is quite literally the exact technology that has been being coded and copied from the past multiple devices, except the new M2 does have the Apple Pencil Hover. When we go back to the chip, of course, it's M1, M2 versus A14 Bionic. I'm not going to get into that. If you really care, do some reading. I mean, anything that's M series is really good for the most part, unless you're doing crazy intensive stuff. If you're running an iPad with an A series chip, it's going to be slow, and it's going to basically be running like an oversized phone. And while iPad OS is still very much an oversized phone OS, it does have a little more applicability and power behind it in some areas. Looking at battery, I mean, they're always going to quote what they're going to quote, so we always ignore that. And then Apple Pencils and Magic Keyboards. It's really interesting playing with this device and comparing it to my iPad Pro because very often, more often than not, the iPad Air with its 60 Hz display compared to an iPad Pro with 120 Hz display often seems like it would be much more laggy and choppy, but with how Apple does their anti-aliasing and 60 Hz optimization, really, if you want to call it that, on these non-ProMotion display devices, it really isn't that bad. You don't notice it. Honestly, I notice it more taking my 120 Hz iPad Pro and putting that down to 60 rather than just keeping a device that's natively a 60 Hz device and keeping it there. It's really interesting how that plays out. It just feels a lot more jittery on the iPad Pro being forced to run at 60 rather than an iPad Air that natively runs at 60. It's really interesting. I'm not sure if there's some reason because of the software limitations and forcing it to stay down, or if there's something else going on. Now, I will say something that is a little bit annoying is the speakers. So the iPad Pro has 4 quad speakers, 2 on each side, top, bottom, whereas the iPad Air only has 2 speakers running straight in the middle, one on the left, one on the right for stereo, but it's not full quad speakers, which of course are really good on the iPads. Continuing on, there's really not that much different. I mean, obviously Bluetooth got an upgrade, so Wi-Fi got an upgrade, whatever. No one really cares. Of course, it has 5G and an eSIM and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get a ton into this video and just talking about the specs, or I'll do another video talking about comparing how it works. And I'll probably do a day in the life video just talking about it as my main device because I'm trying to leave my MacBook at home more, especially now since this is actually going to support my Notes app that I actually try and use. That was also, I think I mentioned, one of the things that just really pushed me over the edge of getting this iPad, just being the absolutely uselessness when it came to running it on a whatever this is running, a really old chip. So with that being said, I think I'm just gonna check and see what nightmare of a chip my old one was running. I mean, it comes to a point. I mean, this iPad's from 2018. It comes to a point where, sure, it still works for a lot of stuff, but if you even want to take notes or something in a non-Apple native app, it's gonna be a lot worse. And so it gets bad. I will say one thing that is very sad is the iPad Pro does get up to 600 nits of peak brightness, whereas the iPad Air only gets up to around 500. You do notice it. But take what you can get. So yeah, my iPad Pro is running the A12X. Now, I've loved this iPad, but it needs to go on to find another life. And so I did, of course, the Apple trade-in, and I'm getting around $235 for an iPad from 2018. If you ask me, that's a pretty good trade-in value. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. We'll do a little more comparison talking about these before I have to ship off my iPad Pro, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Hopefully this seemed a little bit better. Again, the last one, it was on a whim when I recorded it, so if it seemed weird, it probably was, and I do apologize for that. So I'll catch you guys. Take it easy. And also, huge thanks to everyone who watched that previous video that was questionable. It was really encouraging to wake up and see the view count that insanely high. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I uploaded that video and moved on with my life. And to just see these comments rolling in and see subscribers popping in and being like, wait, what? That actually happened. It was really encouraging. So I do appreciate that. And I also have some other videos in the works. I want to do some stuff with my drone, but I need other people around for that. So I will catch you guys later. Take it easy. Peace.